It was a quiet Saturday afternoon. The kind where the sunlight hits just right through the tall glass windows of my living room, and the air smells faintly of jasmine from the garden. I was sitting on my cream-colored sofa, sipping my usual afternoon espresso, when the sound of tires crunching on the gravel driveway broke the calm. At first, I didn't think much of it. I was expecting a delivery from one of the interior stores downtown. But then, a strange feeling crawled up my spine. Something felt off. I stood up, walked toward the window, and froze. There, right in front of my house, stood a silver SUV packed with people I hadn't seen in over a decade, my family. My estranged family. The same people who hadn't invited me to a single family event for 12 long years. Weddings, birthdays, funerals, all of them went on without me. My heart started pounding as I watched them step out, one by one. My mother, her hair now streaked with silver, clutching a handbag that looked too new for her usual style. My brother, still wearing that same smug grin that used to drive me insane. And behind them, a few cousins I barely recognized, each staring up at my mansion like they'd just arrived at a 5-star resort. I didn't move for a few seconds. My first instinct was to lock the doors and pretend I wasn't home. But then the doorbell rang, sharp, loud, and deliberate. I took a deep breath. 12 years. 12 years of silence, anger, and unanswered questions. And now they were standing at my front door, acting like nothing had ever happened. I stood in front of the door, staring at the polished brass handle like it was some kind of test. My hand hovered over it for a good few seconds. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips. Part of me wanted to open it, to face them, to finally say everything I'd rehearsed in my head over the years. But another part of me, the cautious part, whispered, don't give them that satisfaction. The doorbell rang again, longer this time. Then came a familiar voice, shaky, older, but unmistakable. Sweetheart, it's Mom. Please open the door. That word, Mom, hit me like a punch to the chest. For 12 years, I hadn't heard her voice anywhere but in my memories. And now, there she was, standing just a few feet away, like nothing had ever happened. I took one last breath and unlocked the door. The moment it swung open, time felt like it collapsed in on itself. My mother's eyes filled with tears the second she saw me. She looked smaller than I remembered, her once confident posture now slightly hunched. Behind her, my brother crossed his arms, scanning the entryway like he was inspecting property, not reconnecting with family. Wow, he muttered under his breath, glancing around the foyer. You've done really well for yourself, huh? There it was, the same tone that always carried a hint of jealousy. I forced a polite smile. I guess some of us had to. Silence. The kind that feels too heavy to breathe through. Then my mom stepped forward, her eyes glistening. Can we come in, dear? We just wanted to see you. It's been too long. Too long. The understatement of the century. They hadn't just forgotten me, they'd erased me. When I left home all those years ago after the fight about the inheritance, none of them called, none of them wrote. And now, they were at my door, suddenly wanting to see me. Still, something in her trembling voice stopped me from slamming the door. I stepped aside slowly. Fine, come in, I said. But don't expect this to be a warm welcome. As they entered, the echo of their footsteps filled the marble hallway, the sound of ghosts walking back into a life they'd once abandoned. And deep down, I knew this wasn't a casual visit. Something was coming. They moved through my house like tourists in a museum, quiet, curious, trying not to touch anything but staring at everything. My brother, Alex, stopped by the glass staircase and whistled softly. Damn, marble floors, designer furniture, a chandelier. You really hit the jackpot, huh? I clenched my jaw. It's called hard work. Something you might have heard of. He smirked. Same smug face. Same tone. 12 years apart, and nothing had changed. My mother sat down carefully on the edge of the sofa, looking around like she didn't belong there. You've done so well, sweetheart, she said softly. I always knew you would. I wanted to believe her, to think that maybe, just maybe, she was proud of me. But the words felt hollow. The last time I saw her, she told me I'd chosen greed over family. Now she was complimenting the results of that same greed. Why are you here, Mom? I asked finally, cutting through the polite silence. You didn't drive 2 hours just to admire my decor. She looked down at her hands, fiddling with her wedding ring, or what was left of it. The diamond was gone. Alex sat across from me, leaning back casually. All right, I'll just say it, he said, rolling his eyes. We're in a bit of a situation. Dad's business, well, what's left of it, is gone. The bank took the house last month. We're kind of between places right now. There it was. The truth. I laughed, quietly at first, then louder. You kicked me out of that same house 12 years ago, remember? Said I wasn't family anymore. And now you're here because you need a place to stay. My mother's eyes filled with tears. It's not like that, honey. We didn't know where else to go. We thought maybe what? I interrupted. That I'd just forget everything. That I'd open my doors and pretend none of it happened. The room went still. Even the air felt heavier. Alex's jaw tightened. You've got more than enough space here. One spare room isn't going to kill you. I stared at him, really stared, and realized what this visit was. It wasn't about family, or forgiveness. It was about desperation. Still, something about my mother's trembling hands, the quiet shame in her eyes, made my anger falter. I sighed. You can stay for tonight, I said finally. Just one night. After that, we'll talk. Relief washed over my mother's face, but Alex just muttered a flat, knew you'd say yes. As I turned away, something deep inside me whispered, this is only the beginning. That evening, the house felt heavier than it had in years. Every sound seemed amplified, the clinking of cutlery, the hum of the air conditioner, even the faint rustle of my mother's napkin. I hadn't had dinner with my family since before everything fell apart, and now, here they were, sitting at my long oak dining table like it was 2013 again. I cooked out of habit, roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, a bottle of wine I'd been saving for something special. I wasn't sure why I bothered. Maybe part of me wanted to show them what life looked like without them. Alex was the first to break the silence. So, what exactly do you do now? Must pay pretty damn well. Consulting, I replied, not looking up. Real estate and investments. He smirked, stabbing his fork into the chicken. Figures. You always did like money more than people. My grip on the wine glass tightened. And you always liked people's money more than earning your own. He froze, glaring at me from across the table. My mother quickly jumped in. Enough, both of you. Please. We didn't come here to fight. I sighed, pushing my plate away. Then why did you come here, Mom? Because so far, all I've heard is that you lost the house. That doesn't explain showing up after 12 years. Her eyes flickered toward Alex for a split second. So quick, most people wouldn't have noticed. But I did. Something unspoken passed between them. We just needed some time to figure things out, she said quietly. You've done so well, and we thought maybe we could stay here while we look for a place. How long? I asked. She hesitated. A few weeks. Maybe a month. I sat back, studying her face. She couldn't even look me in the eye. And that's when I knew, there was something else. Something they weren't telling me. Alex cleared his throat. It's not just about us, he said. There are complications. Some legal stuff. Legal. I frowned. What kind of legal stuff? He avoided the question, taking a long sip of wine instead. The silence that followed was thick, heavy enough to choke on. My mother reached across the table, her voice trembling. Please, just let us stay a little while. I'll explain everything tomorrow, I promise. I didn't respond. I just nodded slowly, more out of exhaustion than forgiveness. As I cleared the plates later that night, I caught Alex pacing in the hallway, whispering into his phone. He didn't see me watching from the kitchen doorway. And when he hung up, I swear I heard him say, yeah, we're in. She bought it. My heart dropped. The next morning, sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, soft and golden, but it couldn't warm the strange chill that lingered in the air. I barely slept. My mind kept replaying Alex's whispered words from the night before, yeah, we're in. She bought it. Bought what? I got up early, made coffee, and tried to shake the unease off. From the kitchen, I could hear muffled voices upstairs, my mother and Alex arguing in hushed tones. I caught fragments. You shouldn't have said that last night, We don't have time, she's going to find out. My gut twisted. When they finally came downstairs, my mother looked like she hadn't slept either. She gave me a faint smile. "Morning, sweetheart. You didn't have to make coffee for us." "I didn't," I said flatly, pouring myself a cup. Alex yawned exaggeratedly and grabbed one anyway. "So, what's on the agenda today, sis? You going to show us the pool? The guest house?" I stared at him. "Actually, I was going to ask you about that legal stuff you mentioned last night." His smirk faltered for half a second, barely noticeable, but I caught it. My mother quickly jumped in. "It's nothing serious, dear. Just some paperwork issues with the bank. You don't need to worry about it." "Right," I said. "Because banks totally repossess houses over paperwork issues." Alex's eyes hardened. "You've changed," he said. "You used to care about your family." "No," I replied, setting my mug down. "I cared too much. That's what got me thrown out in the first place." The room went silent. My mother looked like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Then, her phone buzzed. She checked it, her face going pale before she quickly put it away. I noticed it, and so did Alex. "Who was that?" I asked. "Nobody," she said too quickly. "Just a friend checking in." They exchanged a look again, the same nervous glance I'd seen at dinner. After breakfast, I decided to get some air. As I walked toward the garage, I noticed something odd. One of the side doors, the one leading to the basement storage room, was slightly ajar. I never left it open. I pulled it wider, and froze. Boxes had been moved. My locked metal case, the one where I kept old documents, property deeds, and investment records, was sitting in the middle of the floor, unlocked. My pulse quickened. I always kept that case sealed tight. Only I had the key. I opened it and flipped through the folders. Some papers were missing. Someone had been down there last night. I looked up toward the ceiling, where faint footsteps echoed from the floor above. My family, the same people who hadn't spoken to me in 12 years, were walking around my house, pretending to be guests. But now I knew. They weren't here for reconciliation. They were here for something much bigger, and I intended to find out what. I spent most of that morning pretending everything was fine, smiling when necessary, nodding through small talk, all while my mind ran 1,000 miles a minute. The missing papers from my locked case haunted me. Those documents weren't just old records, they included property deeds, shares, and confidential agreements worth a small fortune. Whoever took them knew exactly what to look for. Around noon, my mother and Alex announced they were going for a short walk to clear their heads. I watched them leave through the large front windows, holding back the urge to follow immediately. Instead, I waited 5 minutes, then quietly went upstairs to check their guest rooms. My mother's suitcase was neatly packed, but something caught my eye, a small folded paper sticking out of her purse. I hesitated, then carefully pulled it free. It was a printed email. The subject line read, "Pending transfer, urgent confirmation needed." The sender was a law firm. My heart pounded as I read the first few lines, something about a transfer of ownership and shared authorization between two parties. And one of the names listed was mine. They were trying to move assets under my name. I put the letter back exactly where I found it and closed her bag before heading to Alex's room. His wasn't as tidy. Clothes were scattered, and his laptop sat half open on the desk. Normally, I would have respected his privacy, but not now. I pressed a key, and the screen lit up. It was still logged in. On his email, I saw a string of messages to someone named D. Carter, legal broker. My blood ran cold when I read the latest one. Greater than she has everything we need. Once the signature is done, the property is ours. Don't contact me again after the transfer. I quickly took photos of the screen with my phone, then shut it down before leaving the room. When they returned, pretending nothing had happened, I was sitting on the patio with my laptop open, pretending to work. "Nice walk?" I asked. My mother smiled weakly. "It's a lovely neighborhood. So peaceful." Alex shrugged. "Could use a little more excitement." I studied their faces carefully, every twitch, every glance. They were acting normal, but the air around them felt off. I needed to be smarter, quieter. If they were plotting something, I couldn't scare them off yet. That night, I called my lawyer friend, Jenna, someone I hadn't spoken to in years but still trusted. I told her only part of the story, about my family showing up and some missing documents. She didn't hesitate. "Send me whatever you find," she said. "And keep them close. If they're planning something illegal, we'll catch them in the act." I hung up, feeling both terrified and strangely calm. Before going to bed, I walked past the guest rooms again. The doors were closed, the lights off. But as I reached the end of the hall, I heard it, a muffled voice. "Alex's. She'll never see it coming," he whispered. Then silence. My stomach turned. Whatever this was, it was no longer just about money or forgiveness. They were planning something, and I was their target. Sleep was impossible that night. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like a warning. Every whisper of wind outside made me sit up and listen. I knew something was wrong, I just didn't know how deep it went. At around 1:30 a.m., I finally decided I couldn't just wait anymore. I got up quietly, grabbed my phone, and opened the voice recorder app. If Alex and Mom were scheming behind my back, I was going to catch them in the act. Their rooms were down the hall, doors slightly cracked open. I moved slowly, barefoot, careful not to make a sound. The soft glow of light spilled from under Alex's door. He was still awake. I crouched outside and pressed my phone close to the gap. At first, I heard nothing but the faint rustle of papers. Then came Alex's voice, low and tense. "Greater than, you can't back out now, Mom. We already sent him the documents. He's expecting the signed papers tomorrow." My mother's voice followed, trembling. "Greater than, I didn't think it would go this far, Alex. She's still my daughter. We can't just steal her property." "Greater than, we're not stealing," he snapped. "We're taking what's ours. Dad built that company. She cut us out after he died." My heart thudded against my chest. So that's what this was about. My father's old company. The one I rebuilt after it collapsed. They wanted it back, everything I'd worked for, rebuilt from ashes. "Greater than," Daniel said once the signature's forged. "It's done," Alex continued. "By the time she figures it out, the transfer will be complete." Daniel D. Carter. The name from his emails. My mother started crying softly. "Greater than, you promised no one would get hurt." "Greater than, and no one will," Alex hissed. "Just act normal. We're leaving by Friday, with everything signed." That was enough. I backed away, silent but shaking. My phone had caught every word. Back in my room, I listened to the recording 3 times just to be sure I wasn't imagining it. Each time, the truth hit harder. They weren't just using me, they were robbing me. By morning, I already had a plan. I forwarded the recording and the photos from Alex's laptop to Jenna, my lawyer friend, with a short message. "Greater than, it's worse than I thought. They're forging my signature. I need legal protection, and a trap." Within minutes, she replied. "Greater than, don't confront them yet. Let them try. We'll have them caught red-handed." I looked out the window just as the sun started to rise. My mother was in the garden, watering the plants like nothing was wrong. Alex stood nearby, on the phone again, pacing, smiling. They thought they were in control. But now, I had the evidence. And this time, I was going to decide how the story ended. By the next morning, I had a plan, cold, calculated, and foolproof. I wasn't going to yell, accuse, or kick them out. No, I was going to let them think they'd won. Jenna and I spoke early that day over a secure call. I sent her every screenshot, every file, and the full recording from the night before. She was calm, steady, exactly what I needed. "Greater than, here's what we'll do," she said. "Let them bring you the documents. Pretend to cooperate. We'll have an investigator and a notary posing as my assistant in your house when it happens. The moment they hand over the forged papers, we'll have proof, and witnesses." It was a bold plan, but it made sense. The trap would only work if I played the role of the trusting daughter, the one still clinging to the hope of family. So that morning, I went downstairs with 2 cups of coffee and a smile I didn't feel. My mother was at the dining table, flipping through her phone. Alex sat nearby, scribbling something on a manila folder. "Morning," I said lightly. "I've been thinking, maybe I overreacted." If you need my help with those papers, I'll take a look. Alex's head snapped up, eyes narrowing like he didn't quite believe it. Really? I nodded. Really? We're still family, right? He grinned, leaning back in his chair. Right. Glad you came around. My mother looked relieved, but her hands were still trembling slightly. It would mean a lot to us, honey. It's just some transfer documents, very simple, really. Of course, I said, keeping my tone even. Why don't we do it tomorrow morning? I can clear my schedule. Perfect, Alex said too quickly. After they left to run errands, I called Jenna again. She confirmed everything. The investigator would arrive early pretending to be a family friend, and a hidden camera team would record the exchange from my office. The moment Alex presented the forged document, the trap would spring. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I stood by the window watching them return. They looked oddly cheerful, whispering, smiling. My mother even carried a small gift bag, as if this was all just a friendly visit. At dinner, Alex couldn't hide his excitement. You'll see tomorrow, he said between bites. Once all this is done, everything will be back to normal. Just like it used to be. I forced a smile. I'm counting on it. But as I looked at them, my own family, sitting there and plotting behind kind faces, I realized something chilling. Even if this plan worked, even if they were caught and exposed for what they'd done, there would be no normal ever again. This wasn't reconciliation. This was war. And tomorrow, it would finally end. The morning of the trap arrived like a storm disguised as calm. The house was spotless, the table set neatly in my office, and the air smelled faintly of fresh coffee. But beneath that peaceful surface, every detail had been carefully planned. Jenna's assistant, a calm young woman named Leah, arrived just after 8 a.m. I introduced her to Alex and my mother as a legal consultant helping me review some contracts. They bought it instantly. Leah's discreet earpiece connected her directly to Jenna and the investigator team waiting just outside. By 9 a.m., Alex came downstairs wearing a sharp grin and holding a thick envelope. Got everything ready, he said, tapping it twice against his palm. Let's make this official. I forced a smile. Great. Let's get started. We sat around the desk in my home office. My mother sat quietly, pale and nervous. Alex spread out several documents in front of me, perfectly formatted, even with my company's letterhead. It looked professional, legitimate, but I knew what it really was, a trap within a trap. Here, he said, pointing at the signature line. This just finalizes the property restructure, nothing major. The lawyer said once this is signed, the holdings will be protected under the family trust. I leaned in, pretending to read carefully, though I already knew what it was, a forged deed transferring my company and assets to a shell trust managed by D. Carter. I murmured, stalling for time. Mind if Leah takes a quick look before I sign? Just standard procedure. Alex shrugged, but I saw the flicker of irritation behind his fake smile. Sure, go ahead. Leah flipped through the pages, her expression calm but sharp. After a moment, she said evenly, everything appears in order. But I'll just need a witness signature before she proceeds. Is that okay? Alex nodded. Whatever gets it done. Right on cue, the investigator entered, dressed in plain clothes, carrying a briefcase, pretending to be a witness. The room felt thick with tension. My mother's fingers trembled as she held her cup. Alex leaned forward, impatient. Come on, just sign it already. I looked at him, really looked at him, and smiled faintly. You know, Alex, for someone who thinks he's clever, you should have been more careful about where you make phone calls. His smile faltered. What are you talking about? I slid my phone across the table and pressed play. The audio from that night filled the room, Alex's voice, word for word. Greater than, once the signature's forged, it's done. By the time she figures it out, the transfer will be complete. His face drained of color. My mother gasped, covering her mouth. Leah stood up slowly, her voice now firm and professional. Mr. Alex, Mrs. Carter, you are both part of an active investigation concerning attempted fraud and identity forgery. Please stay seated. Two officers entered quietly. From the hallway, badges flashing. Alex jumped to his feet, furious. You set us up. I stood too, my voice steady. No, Alex. You did that the moment you walked through my door. My mother was sobbing now, whispering my name, begging me to stop them. But it was too late. The officers led them out calmly, reading their rights as Alex shouted protests. When the door closed behind them, the house fell silent, the kind of silence that feels both empty and heavy at once. Leah placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing. I nodded, though my chest felt hollow. They'd come into my home pretending to be family. I'd given them one night, and they'd turned it into betrayal. And now, justice had turned it back on them. The house felt different once they were gone, quieter, but not peaceful. The kind of quiet that lingers after a storm, when everything looks the same, yet nothing really is. The sunlight still poured through the windows, the air still smelled like jasmine from the garden, but the warmth was gone. It felt hollow. For the next few days, I went through the motions, calls with my lawyer, statements to the police, endless paperwork. The authorities confirmed everything, the forged deeds, the emails, the offshore account under D. Carter's name. Alex had been planning it for months. My mother's involvement, though, was different. The investigators said she hadn't signed anything or taken part directly. She'd just known, and stayed silent. That hurt the most. 2 weeks later, Jenna called to tell me Alex had confessed to forging my signature. He tried to blame my mother, then the broker, then pressure. Typical Alex. But the real sting came when I learned she'd written a letter for me before the arrest, and asked it be delivered once the case was settled. It arrived in a plain envelope, her handwriting shaky and uneven. Greater than my dear daughter. You have every right to hate me. I failed you, not just now, but years ago when I let your brother turn me against you. I thought I was protecting the family, but I was just protecting my own guilt. I didn't stop him because I didn't want to lose him too. I already lost you once. Please don't think this letter is an excuse. I just want you to know, everything you built, you did it on your own. And I am proud of you, even if I was too cowardly to say it when it mattered. Love, always, Mom. I sat there for a long time after reading it, the paper trembling in my hands. A month later, I visited her. She'd been released pending trial, cooperating with the authorities had helped. When she saw me at the doorway of her small apartment, her eyes filled with tears. She looked older, frailer, like the weight of everything had finally caught up. We didn't say much at first. I just stood there, staring at the woman who had both raised and betrayed me. Then, finally, I stepped forward and hugged her. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something close to understanding. I never wanted it to end like this, she whispered. I know, I said quietly. But it had to end. When I left, the sky was turning gold, the same shade it had been that first day they showed up at my house. Except now, I wasn't the same person. I wasn't the angry daughter they'd abandoned, or the naive woman who wanted their approval. I was someone who had faced her past, and survived it. As I drove home, the city lights flickered in the distance, and I realized something simple but true. Family isn't defined by blood, but by loyalty, by who stands with you when the doors close and the silence begins. And after 12 long years of being left out, I was finally free.